Okay, let's talk about the Attari-Wagah border. Just picture it. But maybe forget the usual, the synchronized flag lowering for a second.
Right, because what's been happening there very recently is a completely different kind of scene.
Totally different. Imagine these just endless lines of vehicles, people packed together, shoulder to shoulder, and you can almost feel this anxiety, this emotion hanging in the air.
Yeah, it's palpable, people moving between India and Pakistan, but not like usual. This isn't that choreographed ritual we normally see.
Now, this feels much, much bigger, more raw, I guess.
And what's really striking is just the sheer scale of it and how sudden it all was. We're not talking about the normal slow trickle of travelers who've gone through checks.
No, this is hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds crossing a border that's usually, so tightly controlled.
Exactly. It's more than just numbers. It signals a really significant, abrupt shift in the, let's say, the delicate balance between India and Pakistan.
Absolutely. Because what we're really watching unfold there is, well, it's basically a geopolitical drama playing out in real time.
Ignited by that terrible terror attack, wasn't it?
Yes, and then almost immediately followed by this sweeping, very firm visa crackdown. It's not just a news item about border crossings. There's so much more going on beneath the surface.
Definitely.
And for this deep dive, that's what we want to do for you. We want to peel back those layers, get to the heart of the what, the why, and the how of it all.
Understand how it played out on the ground.
Exactly. And honestly, some of the specifics we've dug into, they really go way beyond those first headlines you might have seen.
And I think to really get the weight of this, you need to understand this border activity didn't just happen in a vacuum.
Good point.
It's a direct, pretty forceful consequence of specific events that just cranked up the existing tensions. So maybe let's start right there with the event that kicked this whole thing off.
Right. The catalyst. It was that truly horrific terror attack back on April 22nd, 2025.
In Pahalgam.
Yeah, Pahalgam, Jammu, and Kashmir. Think about that place, usually so serene, those beautiful hills just shattered.
And investigations quickly pointed towards groups based in Pakistan, right?
That was the link made, yes.
Yeah.
And the human cost was just immense. 26 people lost their lives, mostly tourists, just there to see the beauty of the place.
It's devastating. And the impact of something like that, it just sends shockwaves, doesn't it?
Across all of India, a profound sense of loss, anger.
And, well, predictably, it immediately inflamed that already very sensitive relationship with Pakistan.
Yeah.
In those moments, national grief, outrage. The pressure on the government to respond, and respond strongly, is just enormous.
And the response from India was strong and fast.
Yeah.
There wasn't much hesitation, was there?
No, it seemed quite decisive.
They issued what was essentially a Leave India notice, aimed specifically at Pakistani nationals who were in the country on short-term visas.
And this wasn't like a suggestion.
Not at all. It was a firm order,
Mm.
unequivocal, with really strict, very short deadlines. If you were in that group, you had to leave fast.
That immediate, forceful action targeting visa holders like that, it really does signal a hardening of India's stance, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And it draws a direct line, at least in that immediate aftermath, between the attack and the presence of Pakistani nationals, regardless of their individual reasons for being there.
So let's look at who exactly this affected. The government listed 12 specific visa types.
12? That's quite a few.
It was a broad sweep. You had visa on arrival, business, film visas, journalist visas, even transit visas for short stops.
Okay.
Then people there for conferences, mountaineering, which, seems a bit random in that list.
Mountaineering. Huh. Yeah, that does stand out a bit.
And then students, visitors, group tourists, pilgrims, group pilgrims. It covered a huge range of short stays.
The sheer breadth of it is definitely noteworthy. It suggests perhaps a desire to minimize any perceived risk, however broadly they defined it at that moment.
Right, maybe an abundance of caution.
Could be. Including something like mountaineering might just point to casting a very, very wide net right after such a serious incident, trying to cover all bases, perhaps.
And those deadlines, like we said, incredibly tight.
Right.
If you had a SARC visa, for travel between South Asian nations,
Yeah.
you had until April 26th.
That's just 4 days after the attack.
Exactly. Medical visas got a slightly longer window until April 29th. But crucially, this didn't apply to everyone.
Right, there were exceptions.
People on long-term visas were exempt. Same for diplomatic or official visa holders. They weren't asked to leave.
And that distinction is key, isn't it? Short-term versus long-term.
Yeah.
It suggests the immediate focus was on people whose presence was less established, maybe harder to monitor quickly.
We actually got some numbers that show the scale of this sudden movement at the border. On April 25th, 191 Pakistanis crossed back into Pakistan.
Okay. And Indians coming back.
287 Indian citizens returned to India that same day. Then the next day, April 26th, another 81 Pakistanis went back.
And Indians.
A bigger number that day, 342 Indians came back into India, and that included 13 diplomats.
Wow. So significant movement both ways.
Definitely. And reports suggested more were expected on the 27th, too.
These figures really do paint a picture, don't they? A sudden, large movement of people in a really short time.
It highlights the reciprocal impact, too.
Yeah.
Not just Pakistanis leaving, but Indians returning because of the rising tensions.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one-way street.
It almost feels like some kind of unplanned exchange program.
But without any of the cultural harmony stuff.
Exactly. No goodwill here. Just urgency and, well, pretty grim circumstances.
Which leads to the question, where were all these people actually staying in India? They weren't all camped near the border, right?
That's a really important question. To understand the logistics, the human impact, we need to look at where these individuals were distributed across the country.
Yeah.
And the data shows some interesting patterns. Concentrations in certain states, certain cities, and some unexpected details, too. Okay, so let's start with Maharashtra. It seems like they had the highest number overall, around 5,050 Pakistani nationals.
That's a lot. But it's important to break that down.
Right, because the vast majority apparently were on those long-term visas, so they weren't actually asked to leave.
Correct. But there were still about 1,000 people on short-term visas who were affected by the order.
1,000 just in Maharashtra. And where were they mostly?
The breakdown's interesting. Nagpur had the biggest concentration, around 2,450. Then Thane with 1,100.
Okay.
Smaller numbers in Jalgaon, Navi Mumbai, Pimpri Chinchwad, Amravati. And Mumbai itself, surprisingly, only about 15.
15 in Mumbai. That is surprising. Why Nagpur, do we think?
That concentration in Nagpur, it probably reflects a mix of things, maybe job opportunities, family ties, perhaps access to specific visa types like medical or business concentrated there. It definitely warrants a closer look.
And there was something else in Maharashtra, wasn't there? A kind of plot twist.
Yeah, this is intriguing. Within Maharashtra, reports said 107 Pakistani nationals were, well, untraceable.
Untraceable. Wow, what happened to them?
Makes you wonder, right? But on the flip side, the state minister, Yogesh Kadam, did confirm that the 1,000 or so short-term visa holders they could account for were definitely leaving as required.
Still over 100 untraceable. That raises questions about tracking, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Questions about the effectiveness of monitoring systems for short-term visas, potential vulnerabilities, things that will likely get looked at very closely now.
Okay, let's move south. Telangana.
In Telangana, the police chief reported 208 Pakistani nationals total, mostly in Hyderabad.
And the visa breakdown there.
Quite different from Maharashtra. 156 were long-term residents, only 13 on short-term visas affected by the order, and then 39 on medical or business visas.
So much smaller numbers overall and fewer impacted by the immediate order.
Right. It suggests different travel patterns to that region. Maybe Hyderabad attracts more people looking for longer stays, education, family, things that predate these recent tensions.
How about Kerala? Further south.
Kerala's numbers tell yet another story. Total of 104 Pakistani nationals. And get this, 99 of them were on long-term visas.
99 out of 104.
Exactly. Only 5 were on tourist or medical visas, and apparently they'd already left even before the deadline hit.
So the impact of the crackdown was really uneven across India.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Kerala suggests that where people had more established long-term reasons for being there, it was seen differently, perhaps less of an immediate concern.
Okay, central India, Madhya Pradesh.
MP reported 228 Pakistani visitors. But the key point there is most had already left before the directive even came out.
So their trips just naturally ended around that time.
It seems likely. Shorter visits probably, making their departure less directly tied to the crackdown itself.
What about the east, Odisha?
Odisha had very few, just 12 Pakistani nationals, but all 12 were instructed to leave by the deadline. Even small numbers were covered.
And even tiny Goa.
Yep. Goa had 3 Pakistani nationals on short-term visas. The chief minister there, Pramod Sawant, confirmed publicly they were leaving too. It seems the directive was nationwide.
No exceptions.
Let's look at Gujarat. Shares a border with Pakistan. They had 7 individuals on short-term visas across a few cities: Ahmedabad, Bharuch, Vadodara.
Okay, pretty small number too.
Yes, but what's interesting in Gujarat is the larger group, 438, on long-term visas. And that includes a number of Hindus who are actually seeking Indian citizenship.
Ah, okay. That highlights the complexity, doesn't it? Different groups, different circumstances, all under the same nationality label.
Exactly. It's not just about short-term visitors.
And finally, Uttar Pradesh, UP.
In UP, the Director General of Police announced they basically cleared everyone subject to the order. Near complete clearance.
Really? How many were left?
Apparently just one single person remained in the whole state, and they were scheduled to leave by April 30th.
Wow. That sounds like incredibly swift and thorough implementation in UP.
It does. So you take all these people from all these states needing to leave super quickly. The scene back at the Attari-Wagah border must have been something else.
Yeah, forget that calm, ceremonial vibe. We're talking long lines, people hauling luggage.
And you have to imagine the emotions, people saying goodbye, maybe not knowing when they'll see loved ones again.
Definitely. A symbolic border suddenly becoming this frantic logistical hub.
The transformation is really stark.
Yeah.
And the human cost, the emotional weight of these sudden departures, the uncertainty, that's a huge part of this story.
We actually got slightly different crossing numbers from the Punjab police protocol officer, Odin Mahal.
Oh, how different.
He confirmed the 191 Pakistanis crossing out on the 25th, but said 75 on the 26th, not 81. And for Indians coming in on the 26th, he said 335, not 342.
Minor discrepancies.
Yeah, but it just highlights how chaotic and fluid it must have been on the ground, how tough it is to get exact counts in real time like that.
That's not surprising in such a fast-moving situation. The overall picture remains the same, though, large numbers moving quickly. The pressure on border officials, both sides, must have been intense.
And think about the travel itself. There are no direct flights between India and Pakistan currently.
Right, that's a long-standing issue.
So anyone flying would have had to take roundabout routes, probably through third countries, adding cost, stress, time.
Absolutely. That lack of direct flights just makes a difficult situation even harder, especially when you're forced to leave on such short notice. It really compounds the logistical nightmare for individuals.
Now, behind all this activity, the state-level actions, the border crossings, there was clearly a strong push from the very top, wasn't there?
Oh, definitely. We heard reports that the Union Home Minister, Amit Shah, was personally calling chief ministers on April 25th.
Really? Personal calls?
Yeah, emphasizing that they needed to ensure no one subject to the order overstayed. That level of direct involvement tells you how serious they were taking this.
It signals it was a top priority.
Absolutely. National security implications, clearly, leaving no room for doubt or delay at the state level.
And it didn't stop there. The Union Home Secretary, Govind Mohan, then held a video conference with all the chief secretaries.
Following up, checking implementation.
Exactly. Reinforcing the urgency. The message couldn't have been clearer. National security was paramount. That was the driving force.
That two-step approach, high-level political calls, then detailed bureaucratic follow-up, shows a really determined effort to make sure the crackdown was effective, total, and fast.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit now. The bigger picture. India-Pakistan relations. Historically, they've been, well...
strained is putting it mildly.
Right. Characterized by a lot of mistrust, tension, and this Pahalgam attack really served as a major flashpoint, didn't it? Pouring fuel on an already smoldering fire.
Yeah, unfortunately, that relationship has a long, complex history of conflict. An attack like Pahalgam, especially with alleged links to Pakistan-based groups, was almost guaranteed to provoke a strong reaction from India.
And the visa crackdown is clearly one of those immediate reactions.
It's a direct consequence of this latest spike in tensions.
And you'd expect Pakistan to formulate some kind of response, too, wouldn't you?
It's that pattern, isn't it? Action, reaction. Given the fragile state of relations, any major event tends to trigger this cycle. What Pakistan does next and when will be really crucial to watch.
And then there were those other reports swirling around, unconfirmed, we should stress.
The Indus Water Treaty.
Yeah, particularly on platforms like X. Suggestions India might consider scrapping the treaty. Now, again, unconfirmed at the time we're talking, no official word.
But the mere mention of it is significant.
Hugely significant. If that were ever confirmed, that would be a massive escalation, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The Indus Water Treaty has held for decades, even through wars. It's vital for water sharing. Tampering with that would be incredibly serious, with massive consequences for water security, agriculture, everything.
So while it's unconfirmed, the fact it's even being talked about shows how high the tensions are.
Exactly. It reflects the potential for really fundamental shifts in the relationship, even touching long-standing agreements. We have to be cautious, but it's a worrying sign.
And adding to that picture of a diplomatic deep freeze, we also heard about the Indian embassy in Pakistan closing.
And Pakistani diplomats being given a week to leave India.
Right. Those are drastic steps. Closing embassies, expelling diplomats. That paints a really stark picture, doesn't it? A relationship at a very low, very concerning point.
Those are extreme measures in diplomacy. Usually signals a near total breakdown in communication. It underscores just how serious this standoff is. The
Right.
normal channels seem to be shutting down.
Amidst all this, the politics, the diplomacy, the potential escalations,
Yeah.
it's just so vital we don't forget the human side of it all.
Absolutely critical.
We're talking about individuals, people who are in India visiting family, friends, getting medical care, doing business, on pilgrimage, just being tourists.
Their lives just completely disrupted, abruptly, suddenly told they have to leave.
The emotional toll, the logistical scramble.
It's immense. The human cost often gets lost in the big political stories, but for those people caught in the middle, it's incredibly real. Stress, uncertainty about their plans, relationships suddenly cut off.
And on the other side, you have the Indians who are in Pakistan making their way back during all this tension. They'll have their own stories too.
Definitely, their own experiences navigating this sudden shift. That border, Attari-Wagah, during those days,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a line on a map.
No.
It became this focal point where individual lives were being directly, profoundly impacted by these huge political forces.
It's where the personal and the political collided very visibly.
The hurried goodbyes, the tears, the worry about what's next. It's a powerful reminder of the real-world consequences of these high-level decisions.
So just to wrap it all up quickly, we had the horrific trigger, that terror attack, then the swift, broad visa crackdown by India, targeting short-term Pakistani visa holders.
Leading to that sudden large movement of people across Attari-Wagah.
A border transformed from ceremony to frantic logistics hub.
All happening against that backdrop of already strained India-Pakistan relations.
And with worrying signs of further diplomatic deterioration, like the embassy closure, and even those unconfirmed whispers about the Indus Treaty.
It's a concise summary of a really complex, fast-moving situation. The speed and scale are what really stand out: the crackdown, the border crossings. It underscores the tension and how decisively India responded.
It really does make you stop and think, doesn't it? The sheer number of people just suddenly uprooted, crossing that border under such pressure, it leaves you wondering, what does this sudden rush of people actually tell us about the human connections that still exist, even when the politics are so incredibly fraught?
That's a powerful question. And maybe as things calm down a bit at the border itself, the bigger question becomes, what are the longer-term fallout effects? For the region's stability, yes, but also for all those individual lives caught in the crossfire.
It's definitely a situation that hasn't fully played out yet, something we'll need to keep watching very closely.